Hey guys, how y'all doing? Hey, I got to get a few things. I'm gonna let y'all sit with this fire real quick. Let me move this out the way. Let y'all enjoy that fire for a minute. I got to go grab a few things. I got some notes in the house that I left. I'm gonna go get them out, and I got to put a little ruby bug up, and then we'll come back and get on the mystery behind the mask. Um, Idaho King Road, right? It's a mystery of King Road, right? Give me just a minute. Give me a couple of minutes, y'all. Watch the fire real quick. I'm going to go grab this stuff. I'll be right back, guys. I'm so sorry. All right, guys. See y'all in just a second. Hopefully I don't mess up. All right, baby. You want to go inside? Come on. I know you do. Come on. Come on. I got to get my note. All right. Come on. Hey, guys. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I had to get my heart out too. I had to get my stuff ready. I got to go to work, remember? I'm not looking forward to that. But how y'all? I wanted to come on a little bit because I wanted to talk about a few things in the mystery on King Road, right? Let's go back. Because I want to get to the point of why I think that it wasn't a vacuum cleaner that was taken. I think it was either some kind of Bose speaker, like those Wi-Fi Bose speakers or something like that, that was taken from Maddie's room. I don't believe it was a vacuum cleaner at all. I think it was something that he took. Now, I don't know, if that's the case. I know some other people feel the same way, that something was taken. I've always thought that. Just like IDs and things, as Xana's driver's license being on the floor or something like that, that was said, like, if that's the case and that is true, then maybe he was looking for student IDs, some kind of token. I don't know what he was doing. And it's possible that it was a vacuum. I really don't know. All we can go by is what's out there, right? But there has been a few things coming out lately that is shedding a different light, like all those cameras that caught his car and all these other things now. Well, I feel like maybe he's not going to get the deal, right? Maybe he's not. We don't know that, right? We don't know that. But we do know that if we go back to the beginning, I always thought somehow, some way, he had some way of watching them, whether it been trail cameras or something like that, right? There's no proof of that, but I'm just saying. We know he loved cameras and he was fascinated with cameras. But let's go back to November 12th, not the 13th. We're going to go back to the 12th because that's the night that they all went out. It was November 12th, 2022. We know that Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi party. We know that Maddie Kaylee had gone to a few places. We're at the grub trucks, all these things, right? Living college life. Living college life, living college dreams, going to school, making the grades, doing the things they're supposed to do as a college student, right? Having a little fun on weekends, things of this nature. A lot of people say it was a party home. Maybe it was. They're in college, right? it's life. That's what you do in college a lot. Some people are book smart and don't want to party and don't drink. Some people do want to party and do have fun. They let off some steam after a hard working week of school and classes. College is not easy, and it's getting harder. I know I have a child in college right now. And she's like, it's so hard, right? I mean, she's taking 16 hours, but yes, it's so hard. Especially when you throw sports and things in there. It gets even harder. But if we go all the way back to that cold night and we wonder, okay, he left, I think, his property, at 2:30 something in the morning? I think, it's not Lipstick, it's Carmex. But, 2:30 at 8 or something, something like that. His phone was cut off at 2:38, I think, p.m. or 48 p.m., I think. But I want to get back because I want to go back early because, all the weather reports that night, it was not clear, it was not stars, it was not moons. We know now the park that he's stargazing at. I'm basically going back to the alibi part of his thing, right? Him saying he was out and about. We know that there's not that great a phone service at that park area where he supposedly went night watch. But the gates close at dark. Right at sunset, the gates are closed. So you can't get in, which means if he was in that park doing that, he was breaking the law there too. Which I don't think he realized that the weather and these things were going to play a factor and he'd throw a wrench into his little alibi. But all those things that now come out, it's going to make it harder for his alibi. I don't think his alibi is going to be entered in. I don't think he has an alibi. Suppose if he has some photos of the stars, I can take a picture of that beautiful moon right there. If y'all could see it, it's beautiful. It's right there. One North Star and the quarter of a moon right there. And it's cloudy. I can see it, but it goes away a lot of times. And so I'm not stargazing because there's only one North Star up there. But that night, those children were out doing the college life, having fun, living their dreams, right? Living their dreams, going to school, making the grades, getting ready to graduate, getting ready to get a job, get the life together. We know Kaylee was already in Austin, Texas, which is a great place to be. There's a big college there, University of Texas there. There's some other things there that, that's, my oldest lives in that area. It's a wonderful place for college, for education. It's a big atmosphere of college, just like, the little Mascot, Idaho, right? That was a small college, but yet big alumni, big, it is, college life is different, right? And he was only, one county over, state line or whatever, I guess. He was in Washington, Pullman, Washington, 10 miles, 12 miles away. So when I go back and I look and I think, okay, they came home, Xana and them got their food order around 4. Shortly after that, their lives were all cut short. By if Brian is the one that they're saying, because his DNA was there in the car and their phone evidence and everything else that points to him being the right one. If he's the right one, then why did he choose that day? And why did he choose that time? Right? Y'all know my opinion. I felt like he thought Ethan was going to be gone by 4 a.m. and he thought it would just be the girls. And I think his whole plan was to come in there and do what he needed to do, have as long as he needed to in that home. And I think it went totally wrong. I think once he left that top floor and got down and things went crazy, I think he knew he left that behind, right? I think he did. I think he caught it, but it was too late because he was already on his path of getting out of there before 911 was called. I think he thought Dylan was calling 911 or somebody, or maybe she did have her phone out and we just don't know it yet. Maybe she got a video of these bushy eyebrows walking towards her. Because when you see the angle of her door, he basically walked right by her. She was to the left of him in that doorway. But, if it's dark in her room and there's no light on, then he might not have really caught her. He might have just been on a mission of, I got to get out of here. and he didn't even see her, right? And there is a possibility. She said he did look at her, but never said did he see her or not. We know that the footprint was left right there, so which tells me most likely that's from Xana and Ethan, because upstairs would have only tracked so much downstairs, and then downstairs would have tracked downstairs. It's on that second floor, right? From that room to there would have made his footprints go that way. And if that Nike shoe that he has turns out to be the one that I found and located, which it looks the same, but it does have a small diamond style pattern. We know that they didn't specifically say it was a Vans shoe. It was a style of the pattern of a Vans shoe on the bottom of the sole. Just like she didn't say it was a vacuum, she said it was a vacuum style object. That's why I thought Bose speakers, we've seen pictures of Maddie's room. We know she had some little things around there. It looked like maybe a little Wi-Fi Bluetooth Bose speaker. We know there's no telling. She's a college kid, so there's no telling what she had that would resemble that. Plus, there's also little gadgets that criminology majors use for like cleaning up crime scenes and, getting DNA, like trace, skin cell evidence to vacuum it up. There's little tools and gadgets they can use. Was it something that he brought? I don't think so. I don't think he would have brought anything like that in there, but it is possible. We know that he wasn't smart enough to wear a belt, right? But I think those Dickie coveralls, I don't think maybe didn't have belt loops because they're coveralls. Maybe that's why. And then if he had like black trash bags or something over him, to prevent the splatter getting on his clothing and soaking through, then he really, really had no way. It was probably in the back pocket of those coveralls. But I've always thought he had two with him because we know he bought two. I thought he had two, and maybe the first one maybe was, strapped down. The second one wasn't. Maybe he had to pull the second one out. Maybe that's why he set it down. Maybe he was holding one with one arm and then snapping it with the other hand and pulling it out off the bed, right? I don't know. We don't know that because we weren't there. But somehow, some way, he took something, whether that been a vacuum and he brought it, or whether it be some kind of item that he took from Kaylee's room as a token, or Xana's room as a token. We don't know, right? But we know that, we don't know for a fact, but we assume that his plan was to go in there and have as long as he needed to. I don't think he planned on it being that short, but I do think, however, when he left there, instead of going straight home, I think he utilized that time. I bet you what's going to end up being is, when that phone came on, it's right after that phone turned back on at, 4:48 or 4:47 a.m. That's when the pictures are going to have been taken. Watch. I bet that's going to come out, that those photos were when that phone came back on, not the 2 hours it was off. Because if it was in airplane mode, it would have definitely picked up to Wi-Fi. Because it's still going to try to connect no matter what. And we know she had that Blue Smurfy box, which we have been told, if that's all correct by Superman, the father, that his phone was picked up on that Wi-Fi box. If they have all that information, yeah, I don't think he'll get a deal. Especially if one of those stores, whether A&W or Ridge Hill Road or one of those other cameras, caught a glimpse of his face at all. Or the suspect of a suspect video, if somehow DM, we know Cellbrite was done on her phone. Why? A suspect of a suspect video. Okay, did she film? Did the other roommate film? And we just never heard anything. That side's been very quiet, but we don't know. We know that supposedly, I think she may have never even came out of a room, but we don't know that they're not trying to protect that statement in some way. We know that DM opened the door 3 times over that period of 15, 20 minutes. But for them to narrow down the exact time, that's why I'm wondering if maybe they had a glimpse on video. Maybe you can't really make out who it is, but it might be there. And if that ninja style mask showed eyebrows or showed something like that, like DM saw, did she have a photo of this? Did she have a video filming on her phone? We don't know, because think about it. If the hall was dark, but she had a light on in her room and you turn the camera on, look, when I turn my camera on at night, it shines a flashlight. Now, if I turn that light off, it'll still come on and it'll use the light behind me to pick up enhancement light for the video. Just like if you want to take a picture of the moon and you turn your flash off so it don't flash and mess up the picture, it'll still take a photo. If you got light behind you or anywhere next to you, like the fire or anything, it'll help that camera focus on the moon a lot better, right? So it is possible that either one, I think it's going to have something to do with Xana's phone being open, the TikTok app being open. I think somewhere there is going to maybe be what caught it. But then again, that's just my opinion. But if we go back to that 12th, that night, everything they did, the college kids having fun, living their life, then came home, Uber, they had ordered food. I think it was Jack in the Box or something of that nature. I don't know exactly, but if you go back and look at some of those photos where you see, I think, the bag sitting on the counter, and then you see all those little fingerprint things by that sliding door, like there's a palm print, there's a hand, all that. Was that him leaning against that, trying to take his coveralls off or something, and he put his hand up there? And was his glove already off? Or was his glove on? I don't know, guys. We don't know that yet, but did he have on multiple pair of gloves? I don't know. Did he have on multiple masks? Did he have on, we don't know what all he had on. We know he pretty much had to have protected his DNA somehow from going everywhere. So that's why I think either he had some kind of suit on, like those painter suits you can get that are white, or you can get them in black, I think, or navy blue, but they're like a painter suit, right? Like what crime scenes used to go in. They wear white, but they make them in different colors. Did he have something like that on that was more of a waterproof, protecting his coveralls? Those are considered zip-up coveralls as well. They're just, they're waterproof and stuff. And a lot of people oil field wear them, the white ones, like when they're cleaning tanks or cleaning the rig, things like that, to keep that debris and chemicals from getting on you. They protect your clothing, for one, keep you dry, and you just take them off and throw them away. So when you take them off, you could have balled everything up in them, and then nothing would have got outside of that little thing, or a shower liner on the seats, or something to protect something. But the way the car was clean, what he put in that trash when they did those trash pulls, they clearly said after he had been detailing that car, he had put trash at 4 a.m. in there from his car. What was in there? I don't know. What's that going to lead to? I don't know. We know they've tried to throw out all this DNA evidence, but one thing they've never clearly come out and said was, he 100% didn't do this, right? They're just trying to get things thrown out. And so what does that tell us? Something. Evidently, they got something really solid. What it is, I don't know yet. But we know they got something really solid, right? And I'm wondering what in God's name that is that they have that's that solid. And maybe it is a suspect of a suspect video. I don't know, guys. But everything that he's tried to do now is getting tossed to the side in this new autism thing, the autism thing really is not going to put, I don't think, a wrench in there, because that can be decided later on when the death penalty thing is decided on, right? Let's get through the court first and then find out if he's guilty or not guilty. Then they'll decide that, and then they can test him on that. Well, I think that'll be done now. No, I think he's going to say, hey, we'll do that after the trial, right? He doesn't want anything else to slow this thing down. Let's get it going. Let's get the trial started. And there's a reason he's pushing this trial. That's why part of me thinks maybe they're not going to give him a deal. Maybe they're going to make him go through trial. And I know if they make him go through trial, it's going to be a huge trial. But don't be surprised if they end up not letting cameras in there and change all that stuff up because of the autism. It might change everything. This might not be public. It might. I mean, we'll get the drawings and we'll get the scoop on it every day, but people might not be allowed in. I don't know yet. But what's it going to come to? What's he going to pull next? That's what I look at, because that night of the 12th, it wouldn't have been the 12th technically, because he didn't leave his Pullman Washington until after midnight. So technically it was the 13th when he left to do his alibi of stargazing. But how is the defense going to handle that part being closed at dark? Cell phone service being wishy-washy out there. that might help, but it's still not going to help him a lot because his phone was off, either on airplane or something else, connected away from the tower. So that news guy that went out there did say it was spotty, which means if he'd have been stargazing and he'd have been hiking up, he would have had service. The higher you are, of course, he would have had. So it would have been in and out of service. It wouldn't have been completely no service. So if his phone was completely turned off, it had no service for 2 hours, which means no way he took a photo unless he was using a different phone or a different camera to take photos, right? He could have taken photos, but they still got to match those with the weather from that night. So don't think they don't have all the weathers from those nights to know it was cloudy, it was snowing, it was hazy, it was foggy, you couldn't see any stars or anything. We know he liked to hike, we know he liked to run supposedly. I mean, all these things, you know, it's what's it going to come to, right? And I'm just wondering what they're going to try next, because if they have not found those coveralls and that weapon and those things of this nature, that's going to be the only thing that he can hold on to possibly maybe grant him some kind of deal. But I go back to the burglary charge. Okay, we know that anytime you break in someone, it's considered burglary. When you commit a felony, right? That's basically, you get charged with burglary. But was the burglary charge because other things were taken? Was there items of jewelry taken? Was there items of a watch or a phone? Or was there anything taken? I don't know. What was this vacuum-like object? That's what gets me. What was that item? And now, if she would have said vacuum, then we'd have been looking at, okay, it is a vacuum. But I know everybody jumped on that because when it came out, we thought, oh my God, he took a vacuum cleaner to do a crime. No, I don't believe that. I believe that it was either something that was used on him by one of them and he had to take it thinking his DNA would be on it, or he took something from one of those rooms, or he took something from both rooms. We don't know yet. Or was it some kind of case that he had stuff in? I don't know either. Because they're keeping so much stuff sealed that we don't really know, right? But we can wonder what it is, and we can guess what we think it is. There's a few little objects that I thought could be, like, you know, those Bose type speakers that you can sit outside when you're listening to music. You know, a lot of college kids use those. They can listen to their professors on them on online classes. They can take it outside, sit down, and listen on that Bluetooth speaker connected to Wi-Fi. You know, was it that? I don't know. It would make sense because if some of them are kind of like a tube on one end and they kind of get narrow, like a small little old-timey like vacuum cleaner would look like, and those little dirt devil things, they look kind of like that. So, and they have a little handle on them that if it was up, it could have looked like maybe a vacuum, right? But I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious if they know what it is. I'm curious if they found this item in the season. I didn't really see it in there, but we know that a lot of stuff is still sealed. So is it something that maybe wasn't found at first and then was found later? Is it something that, because they knew of this from the beginning, because DM told them this in the beginning, right? It wasn't the first statement. I think it was the second or third statement that she brought that up. But, you know, little brain was going through trauma, I'm sure. We can't imagine. And so when that being brought up, right away, I'm sure they started looking for that object, right? I'm sure they put two and two together and thought, okay, some kind of vacuum looking item. So when they went into that home of his and into that apartment of his and into that car of his, they were looking for something that looked similar. And it could have been that he has a little vacuum in his car to clean his car and vacuum his car. I don't know. But just some of the red flags to me in this case, that if he was innocent, right? If he's innocent as he claims, as lawyer claims, why would the amount of glove use, even to Albertsons and these other places, be used? Why would he hide trash in other trash cans? Why? I mean, you can't say cleaning a car, because a lot of people like to clean their cars and they deep clean their cars, and I get that. But they go home for a break, they hadn't cleaned their car all semester. It's time to clean your car, right? Hey, let's clean the car. You know, but you know, he did have a road trip with his father and all that stuff. So to me, I'm wondering now, did his father was in that car for that whole ride home? Did his father see something in that car and be like, uh-oh, what's this? Oh, what's that? You need to clean this. Or you need... Did his father know something? We know now, I think he's going to testify. We know they're not communicating with him. Did his father see some red flags in the beginning? Is that why he flew out? This is a grown man. I don't think his dad would have flown out there just to ride home with him. I just don't see that happening. He doesn't need a babysitter. He's a criminology major, for crying out loud, right? He's making good grades. He's a teaching assistant. Which he was getting fired or had been fired, but still he was a teaching assistant. He was a grown-up. He was almost 30, right? No need for daddy to fly there. I think all this came into play after the white car was released by law enforcement. And then when they started talking about it didn't have a front plate, that's when I think his family was like, oh my God. And then I'm sure that mama said, you better get down there and come back with him and see what you can find out. I think more or less the dad went to try to communicate to see if he could get something out of this child before he got to that home with his family. That father may have been protecting his family, like, let me go and make sure and let me see if I can get something out of him before we get him home and he takes all of us out, right? That may have been a father's instinct. It could have been. And that's what I think it was. I don't think it was that he needed somebody to babysit him and ride with him. And then when you go back to him being pulled over, you want to throw the autism thing in there. Autism, when he pulled over, he made eye contact. He tried to keep that direction, but he tried not to talk about where he came from, if you notice. So to me, autism wouldn't have picked that up because autism kids, a lot of times people with autism it's hard for them to tell lies, right? That's why they say they're always the most truthful people. A judge would rather have somebody testify that has autism than not because they know they're going to get the truth, right? That's always been out there. So I don't think the cover-ups would have happened. I think with autism, if he truly had autism in some form or way, I don't think he would have stood silent. I think he would have said, I'm not guilty, right? I think he would have been claiming this from the get-go instead of not saying anything. I think that he would have been more nervous around the police than he was, right? I think we know he wanted to work for the police department. He wanted to do these things. But, the minute his dad started talking about things that had happened on that campus, he really freaked out. He tried to change that subject. Oh, we're going to go get something to eat. We're going to, he was trying to throw everything out there but where they were going and where they came from. And to me, that's because I think he thought he was being followed. I think he was so paranoid at this point, knowing that they had the sleeve, they had the car. How many cars are going to have no license plate in the front in that particular area of the crime scene? His car was seen the next morning driving by that crime scene on news footage, right? All these things, I think he realized they had so much against him, but yet he still taunted a little bit. And if he was Papa Rogers and all these things, that's not autism, guys. He was basically trying to write a story. He was living a story. He was living what he did through Papa Rogers. But where he messed up was he was putting out things that only he would know if he was that person. Only the person that was in that home would know, I should say it that way. So, Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana, they knew nothing was about to happen. It's so sad. They were on their normal Saturday, Sunday, whatever, morning after having fun all weekend. It's just, if somehow those doors would have been locked. You know what I mean? I understand that scenario. You don't really lock your doors. You don't worry about it because it's not a lot. But now I guarantee you everybody's door is locked. And I bet you everybody has cameras now. I'm sure that town is truly shaken up. But I'm disappointed in how long it's taken to get to court. I am. And how they've allowed this to drag out. I'm really glad and thankful this judge is not hearing it and buying it and he's pushing it. It's going to start on time. And now that I feel like maybe they might not give him a deal, it's going to start on time. There's going to be no more delay tactics. That I think the lawyers have I think his lawyer has realized that. That's why they hired this other DNA expert lawyer. I think they trying everything, but knowing it's not working. I think at some point when you're a lawyer, a defense lawyer, you have to realize, okay, they're not buying none of our stuff anymore. They're not going to allow us to delay. You know, the autism thing, I don't think will throw a wrench in there at all. And it could, but I don't think it will. I think that that'll be pushed later on down the road when it comes to sentencing part. I don't think it's going to affect the trial. Now, it might work in his favor, like to a jury, but if you have no proof of it, you can't throw that in the court, right? Kind of like the alibi. If he can't prove his alibi and it doesn't come physically from him, he hasn't said this. It's his lawyer that's saying this. He has to say this. But if you notice, he's never entered a plea. So he's never said he's guilty or not guilty. And he hasn't talked about his alibi. He's letting his lawyers do everything, which makes me believe that he is kind of running the show here. And when justice is done in this case, if he's the man and they can prove this in court, then he's only going to have himself to blame, right? He's thinking he's Ted Bundy to me. I've always thought that. I think he thinks he's Ted Bundy. And it wouldn't surprise me if he fires his lawyers right before a trial starts to try to dodge another bullet. I don't know. But, you know, remember, allegedly, these are just my opinions, guys, my theories, my thoughts. I'm trying to figure out a motive. And I think the motive was rejection. I think that was the motive. I think he was not fitting in anywhere. I think if he was watching that girl on cameras, I think it was making him more crazy in his head. I think it pushed him more to act on his whatever he had planned, because we know that he really thought this out. I mean, if he had really been stalking them since August, he had plenty of time to plan, guys. And then the one thing that he did was made the mistake of was leaving that cease behind. But I don't think it was purposely. I think it was accident. I think something went different. I think maybe DM hollered out, "Hey, everything okay up there?" Maybe Xana hollered out, "Hey," maybe Ethan hollered out. Maybe something startled him. I don't know. And we might not ever know. It might be that we do know, they do know, we just don't know yet, right? So any of that is possible. But I did want to take a little time to, say our prayers for Maddie and Kaylee and Xana and Ethan, because justice, I feel, will come in this case. I think it's coming. And I think this Judge Hippler is not going to stand for any more BS. I think he's like, these families have suffered enough. So let's just get on with the show. Y'all have had plenty of time. And let's let the jury decide. That's why we have court. And the outcome, I don't know. We don't know what the outcome will be because we don't know what's sealed. But if what we know that they have already, if you times that by 10 when everything is unsealed, then they do have a mountain against him. And I think somehow the suspect video is going to play the biggest role. I think if they have a photo of him at that house, leaving that house, around that house. And another thing I thought about is maybe it's from somebody that was filming a day or two prior or a week prior or a month prior that shows him in that back alley watching that home. Have you ever thought of that? Maybe there's a clip of that. Maybe they were upstairs filming a TikTok one day, Maddie in a room, and, had the camera facing that window, pointing outside at her back, to the window, and she was filming a TikTok or something with a dog, or who knows, and it was seeing outside, and it saw his car and saw him, maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's lots of footage of him around that home on different cameras, right? We know now that all those cameras were catching him, so did they go back and get all those camera footages from August on from all those different stores and all those different places? They might have so much on camera, it's going to blow our minds. But still justice needs to come, right? And I think it's time that him and his lawyers face reality that court's coming, and if they're not going to willing to take a deal, you better get ready to fight, because the amount of evidence stacked against you is looking like it's stacked against you. And so his faith is in his hands and her hands. And that chair, like I said the other night, it waits. And I don't think the autism thing is going to work at all. I really don't. I think they already understand what he's trying to do. I think they figured out what he's trying to do. I think that judge is not seeing through none of it. I think he's realizing how desperate that lawyer is. You know how desperate she's making herself look like right now? But all this stuff and filing 50 motions here and this and that and now autism and, you know, I think he's seeing right through all of that. And so, I don't know. We'll find out soon, right? It's going to be here before we know it, guys. And I've always said deal or no deal, right? I don't, at this point, I don't know. I'm starting to feel now, I'm 50-50 now, they might not even give him a deal. Now, he might just be up a creek with no paddle because of what he left behind. But it's only him to blame for what he left behind and the amount of times he drove around that thing, right? I still wonder why so many trips, right? You know, was he waiting for lights to go off? Was he waiting on something else? Was he, I don't know. It makes you wonder, right? And I know that it was slow in the first trips, but then whenever afterwards, it was a fast leave, right? And then it was never come back again. So that's going to play a role too, right? Because if that A&W has his car, like evidently it's looking like now, that's that camera, then his alibi is no good, because that's going to put his car right there, not where he said he was. Or well, he didn't say, but the lawyer's saying he is. He hasn't come out with his alibi. And I think it's good that they're making him come out. You're going to come out and state it. You're going to show us these pictures. You're going to release. I'm curious to see the picture of the stars on a cloudy night. I'm curious because I'm looking at the moon right now on a cloudy night, and it's 1:45 and I can barely see it. And it's still a little bit cloudy, but it's not as cloudy as supposedly it was there. So anyway, guys, what's it going to be? What's the item? Let's dig on it. Let's think about it. Let's try to put some stuff together and put our minds together to think. Could it be a Bose speaker? Could it be another type of Bluetooth speaker? Could it be a vacuum? Could it be a hairdryer? Could it be, I mean, I don't know if hairdryers look like a vacuum, but you know, some of them have those funny looking cone things with like a brush on the end. Could it have been a vacuum? Could it have been a blow dryer? Could it have been, I don't know, a flat iron? I don't know. There's so many things that could have looked similar to that. I still think it was something he stole from that house, which would go with the burglary. I think that he took something from that home. I think he took more than one thing from that home. And if his hands were that full, that explains why he didn't do anything to her. He had to just get out. He was on a mission to get out. I think he had realized he had been in there too long. And most likely something was going to, you know, the dog barking and everything else startled him, I'm sure. And he wasn't prepared for, I don't think, all that. I don't think he was prepared for Ethan. I don't think he was prepared for Xana to be up. I don't think he was prepared, you know, for any of that. You know, she was doing a TikTok or had her app open. Is that what caught him? I don't know. We'll find out. Eventually it'll all come out. But the Papa Rogers things and all these other things just are all starting to make more sense now. That he was basically living some kind of fantasy of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or something. I don't know. He was living some kind of weird criminology fantasy. Like he was trying to, I think he was obsessed with Ted Bundy for one. And I think he wanted to see how it felt. I think, and that's sick to think about, but I think that's what he wanted, was to see what it was like. Like he had already studied all the book part of it. He knew all the education part of it, but what he didn't know was what it was like. And it's sad because I don't think this was his first time either. So if not, then that means there's other victim out there that didn't get justice. And that sucks. But maybe truth will all come out. Maybe other things will come up. You know, we know his parents testified in that other case, which rang a bell to me, threw a red flag to me. I think his sister and them, his sister I think has said he's guilty from day one. And these are his family members. They know him. So we have to kind of go by what they think sometimes and think, okay, is there any truth to this? Did the sister, you know, she was confronting him, wanting to search the car. There's a reason for all these things. Is because they knew his car matched the car that was seen leaving that crime scene. And I'm sure when they realized it only had one plate, they were like, oh man. Although I think he had the 2 plates by then, they knew that he only had 1 plate at that time. So I think changing the plates, I think doing all those things he did, he was waiting on doing them until after this. And I don't know why he chose that date. I'm sure there's some kind of meaning to that date. We just don't know it yet. But all I keep going back to thinking about is, what if those doors would have been locked, right? Would it have been a different day, or would it have been different? We don't know. Would he have broke in? We don't know what he'd have done, right? We know he broke into that other apartment evidently and moved some stuff around, supposedly. And maybe he had broke into more. I don't know. I don't think this is the only time he'd ever done this. I think he had been in that house before. I think when they were all gone, either sometime on some kind of weekend or a break or something, I think he had been in that place before when they were all gone. I really do. And if they can prove that his phone was somehow in that place before, pinging on that Wi-Fi boost, Murphy, like weeks before or a month before, wow, that's going to make a big difference too. So anyway, guys, that fire's out. You know, we'll talk about this another night. So y'all have a good night. Just wanted to talk about it a little bit more. It's getting close to trial. I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen. Take a deal, not take a deal. They're going to give him a deal, not give him a deal. Autism thing, going to throw a wrench, not throw a wrench. Was it a vacuum? Was it something else that he stole? Did he take a vacuum? So many unanswered questions. But the one thing that we do know is that those 4 angels need justice. And so if he is the one that they're claiming he is, then they got the right person if that's the case. And let's just see what the jury decides. Anyway, guys, y'all have a good night. How to blow that candle out. We love y'all, guys. Remember, alleged, these are my opinions. It's just my theories, all alleged. Take it as a grain of salt. Y'all's comments, y'all's and y'all's alone, not to reflect channel. We do our research together. We're a big-hearted little family. And trigger warnings always, especially in this case, times 200 million in this case. But, you know, justice for all that needed justice. That's how I see it. The truth must come out. And, you know, while I'm closing this, I want to say a little prayer again for little Dane, the little 2-year-old missing. Still has not been found. They're searching the waterways heavily. That's scary. What happened to this young man? I don't know. But I know law enforcement came out this afternoon and said clearly the family is brokenhearted. So that's why I'm not speculating anything. I'm just praying to God he's found. I would love for him to be found safe and brought home to his mom and dad. But the more time goes on, the more I think it's looking like he may have got in that river, and that's heartbreaking. So y'all guys have a wonderful night. We love y'all guys, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Remember, the mystery still lies within the King Road until trial. So y'all guys be good, be safe. We love y'all guys. We'll talk to y'all on the next one. Keep the prayers up, guys, for all. All right, guys, y'all be good. Talk on the next one. Bye.